As you heard in that beautiful and eloquent description of the work that we do, for 17 years, our dream has been building schools. Over 650 schools and schoolrooms in countries all around the world. And I believe education is the greatest gift. It changes lives. And so I cannot express how deeply honored, how humbled, and how grateful I am for this extraordinary gift. Thank you, and I cannot articulate how honored I am to now be part of your extraordinary community. Thank you. I would love to say thank you to a few very special individuals. His Worship, Mary Krantz, who's with us here today for 50 plus years of serving the community here. First as a part-time firefighter, and now as one of Canada's longest-serving mayors, for growing a city that I say we all follow in the footsteps of those who came before us. And thank you very much, sir, for the graciousness and the words, and for the service to inspire so many young people. Thank you for being here very much today, sir. Thank you. To our MPP who is with us here, our deepest gratitude. Thank you, Ted Chudley. To all those representatives from Halton District School Board who are with us here today, the Chair, the Director of Education, David, thank you for all the support for the school board, not only today, but across the wee days and the work that we do as the school board here. Our gratitude to the superintendents, a particular thank you to Daniele, who really was a driving force in helping with this extraordinary honor, and to whom I'm personally deeply, deeply grateful. A thank you, of course, to Donna Taylor, the principal of this extraordinary school, continuing E.C. Drew's legacy now into this school here today. Thank you for the welcome and the extraordinary ceremony and celebration. A huge thank you to Justin and Maddie. You could not have picked two more passionate and heartfelt spokespeople to carry a message. I saw the video version of that, and to hear it in person made chills run up my spine. Thank you so much for coming back to share that yet again, and for bringing that same passion and that dedication. To the Global Council members, we had the chance to meet earlier. The loud and the proud, I love that cheer. To the Global Council members for your incredible work. The naming of the school is an honor, but what you do, living that message through your service, and I'll have a chance to talk about that in greater length, but that is perhaps the greatest honor, to bring that spirit into the school. Whether it be at home for the actions you've done for United Way, or book drives, or globally with Haiti and Kenya and now Ghana. I do have to say thank you to a few people in particular, to Ainsley, who keeps that page alive on Facebook. Our gratitude to Lena for her work on bullying that she's led, to Sandy, the Student Prime Minister and Global Council leader, for her leadership, to Emily and Stephanie, some extraordinary leaders in that school. Thank you. And thank you to all of you, to the students here who have come together for supporting all the incredible actions that have taken place in this school over the past years, from the local to the global, to the teachers who live that spirit every single day. And to those who make the school proud, who bring that Spartan pride, both to the sports teams and the famous wrestling that, the extraordinary wrestling teams here, all the sports, but for living that message through service and through compassion every single day. I said how this is an extraordinary honor because of the work that we do internationally, but to be candid, it's not only because of that. I come from a family of educators. Some of the students here I had a chance to meet earlier, and we were chatting with the power of education. If I can... See, when I'm younger, they're embarrassing photos. Now that I'm older, I get to embarrass my parents in the photos. This is my folks and my brother, and to truly articulate why standing here today is such an honor, and something I am so deeply grateful for, is to understand that both my parents are school teachers. My father taught languages, French, and the second half of his career, English. À cause de lui aujourd'hui, je parle français. My mom taught children with special needs in elementary school, and I would spend my PE days in her classroom. Teachers in the fullest sense of the word. I've got cousins, aunts, uncles who are teachers. We joke it's like a teacher reunion around our family when all the relatives come together. Someone made a grammar error, too many people would correct you always at once. But they taught inside and outside the classroom, believing in the power of education. My father, when he would read the newspaper, he would always lay it flat on the kitchen table. Talk about what's happening in the world, not at some far-off place, but pointing out the stories in the articles. My mom could not walk past a homeless person in downtown Toronto. It's not physically possible. Whenever she would pass by, she would hand something. And in the few moments it would take for her to reach into her purse, she would ask them their name, where they're from, how long they've been on the streets. Years later I thanked her for that and said how much I admired how she was nice to those people. And my mom looked at me and smiled and said half the reason why she did it was to be nice to those people. The other half the reason was for my brother and I. So we wouldn't just walk by. Instead, that we would look at that person in the eyes. We would hear that he or she has a name, and we would acknowledge their humanity. My older brother, 6 years older than I am. Again, I get to pull out the embarrassing family photos. 6 years older, so, actually, let me take a step back if I may. I don't get the chance to often do this, so I have to ask you as a favor, if you don't mind, the students and teachers here. Unfortunately, my mom is not able to be with us. She's under the weather, but my father is. Could I ask my father to please stand as a retired teacher? My older brother, 6 years older than I am, another great teacher in my life, someone who, growing up, I literally thought walked on water. 6 years older. For the sports teams, he loved sports. That was his unbelievable gift. And as the little brother looking up to the older brother, 6 years difference. He was not only good in sports, but also really quick with the tongue in negotiations. And one day, tried to weasel his way out of doing home chores. He looked at the cleaning products and said, no, carcinogenic, explodes under pressure. Mom, Dad, I can't clean the bathroom, I can't clean the kitchen. This is bad for me. My mom didn't quite buy it, sent him to my grandmother's who used a mix of baking soda, lemon, and a little elbow grease, and Mark got an idea for a science fair project. 7th grade grew into 8th grade, continued it along on alternative-friendly home cleaners, on the environment, but didn't stop there. He wrote a recipe book that he published on it. Went school to school collecting signatures of other young people, raising awareness about protecting our environment. And I remember being 6 years younger, looking up at my older brother years later when starting Free the Children, thinking if he could do it, then maybe so could I. And my brother's with me here, if I could ask him to please stand. Today, Mark and I, side by side, we've run and grown for the children around the world. Another great teacher in my life, someone who was not family, but taught me a very important lesson about social justice. Some of you I know his story. A young boy named Iqbal Masih, a young child slave. When I was growing up in Thornhill and reached for the comics one morning, I saw this article about his life. The story of how when he was 4 years old, his family was so poor, they pledged him as collateral against a loan. And when they couldn't repay, he was taken away from his family. He was sold for the equivalent of $16 into slavery. And he worked every single day tying thousands and thousands of tiny knots, trying to weave hand-knotted carpets until he managed to escape at the age of 10 and started to tell his story and traveled through Pakistan and eventually invited to North America to tell his story. And returns home riding his bicycle in front of his home. And was shot dead. And was assassinated as a student for raising his voice. I've seen footage of him years later when he was just 10, 11 years old, going through schools, and he would always hold a carpet tool in one hand, and he would hold a pencil in the other, and he said, every single child in this world deserves the right to go to school, and no one should ever be forced to labor away. He taught me that you don't have to wait to raise your voice. There's no age limit or height requirement to change this world. That if you're passionate about something, you have to raise it loudly. Whether it be standing up against bullying or fighting against racism when you hear that racist joke, or choosing whatever issue is close to your own heart, he was my spot. You know, and I read that article and I brought it to my then 7th grade class, as you heard, and the first thing I did was walk up to my teacher. Now, I talked about teachers from my parents to my brother, from Iqbal to this is an actual teacher, one who I was in his classroom. His name is Mr. Fedrigoni, my grade 7 teacher. And I walked up to him one morning with this crumpled up newspaper article, and I asked for his help. I asked for permission to speak in front of my school, and I remember I spoke so incredibly quickly because I was nervous I didn't know what to say, and I asked him if I could give a speech in front of the school. And I looked at that moment because he could have so easily looked at me and said, "Not today. You know, we're running late. We don't have time." And I wonder, 17 years later, I wonder if he had said that, if We the Children would be here today. If I would have the honor to stand in front of you today. I don't think so. That's the difference one teacher can make in the life of a student, and the ripple effects it can create unexpectedly in the lives of so many others. The power of teachers. You know, from that one moment, his compassion and his care, this photo, we had a chance to pay tribute to him at We Day. I know some of the students here were at We Day with us in ACC a few weeks ago. 20,000 students came from 1,000 schools. Part of 100,000 who were coming together literally all around this country. Would any of that have happened without that one teacher's words of support? You know, I've had a lot of great teachers in my life, teachers who have believed in the power of education. My grade 9 French teacher, Mr. Negro, who helped us sit down and put together an alternative learning program in my high school days because I missed so much school. Miss Dever, my guidance counselor, who I think I spent more time in her office than in classes sometimes, trying to juggle everything I wanted to study. Miss McMorrow, who was my principal, but also my English teacher, who went above and beyond because I missed so many class days that she literally brought me under her wing. And many of those teachers are with us here today, and so can I ask them to please stand. You know, perhaps some of the greatest lessons, some of the greatest teachers I've ever had have been inside classrooms, but also outside them. You know, we worked in this tiny rural community in Ecuador, the base of something called Mount Chimborazo. And high in the Andes Mountains, we had a group of international volunteers. One of the things we now do, a couple thousand students every year will go overseas with us, and they'll build, and they'll teach, and they'll volunteer, they'll give it their summers, give it their winters, help establish schools. I know there's a delegation from this school off to Ghana that I'm incredibly excited for, to see those projects, to see the communities that you've worked so hard to support. And it was high up in the mountains one day that we were running late. The school supplies arrived late. And so we turned to the village and we said, we can't finish the school, we'll have to bring a second group of volunteers in. And the village chief, she looked at us and she waved her hand and said, "No problem." She said, "Let's finish it now." And we bowed our heads with great respect and we said, perhaps we weren't clear. It's not possible. We can't finish the school. There aren't enough hands and there's not enough time. We'll have to bring a new group in. Our group has to fly out. We have plane tickets. And the chief just looked at us and shook her head and she said, "No, let's finish it now." And she shouted out these words in Quechua, in her language. She shouted out, "There will be a minga." And when these words went out, they started to be passed person to person. Men, they dropped their tools in their fields at peak harvest season. Women took babies, strapped them to their backs, started walking. They brought children, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, sent them as runners. There's no phone, no electricity here, no cell phones. Sent them as runners to all the neighboring villages to bring everyone together. Hundreds of people walked for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours to come each way. They would never benefit from their school. Their own children couldn't go. But they came anyways to build the school. And at the end I asked, "What's a minga?" What's the power that brought everyone together?